Sophie Cunningham has now been fined 4 times this season?
The root of the problem is the officiating is dog shit.
Sophie Cunningham has now been fined 4 times this season, and the core of the problem, the very root of this growing and messy situation, is that the officiating in the WNBA is, to put it plainly, terrible. It's a messy, inconsistent, and often frustrating part of the game that has left players, coaches, and fans shaking their heads in disbelief. But the truly baffling part of this whole affair is the feeling that the league, perhaps even the commissioner herself, actually seems to like this chaos. It's as if the drama, the controversy, and the headlines, no matter how negative, are seen as a form of engagement, a sign that people are paying attention. But while the league might be content to ride this wave of drama, Caitlin Clark is absolutely fuming after the WNBA decided to slap yet another fine on her teammate, Sophie Cunningham. And what was Sophie's great crime? All she did was speak the truth. Because apparently, in this new era of the WNBA, a league that is supposed to be about empowering women, you can throw an elbow into the face of the league's biggest star, the very player who is single-handedly driving its newfound success. But you are absolutely not allowed to talk about it afterward. This latest fine is so much bigger than just a financial penalty. It's a sign of a league that is in a full-blown meltdown, a league that is struggling to control a story that is quickly spiraling out of its hands. So yes, for Sophie Cunningham, it happened again. She has once again been fined for calling out the referees, but this time, the situation is different. This time, the reaction from the league has reportedly made Caitlin Clark furious. She's not just surprised, she's not confused. She is deeply, intensely angry. Because how long can this kind of nonsense be allowed to go on? It really wasn't that long ago that this whole saga began, not with a fiery press conference or a heated on-court exchange, but with a short, simple video on TikTok. In that video, which you can still find online, posted on July 23rd, Sophie Cunningham put up a clip where she lightheartedly joked about the referees being useless. She used a popular song, a trending audio clip, and made a funny face, a move that thousands of other people on the app do every single day. At one point, in the song, the lyrics call the referees useless, and Sophie lip-synced along with a playful shrug. It was a joke, a small moment of humor from a player known for her candid and down-to-earth personality. But the WNBA didn't see it that way. For that single, harmless video, a clip that was meant to be funny and relatable to fans who were also frustrated with the officiating, she was hit with a $500 fine from the league. Was that a harsh punishment? Absolutely. But it didn't stop there. After that initial fine, Sophie has come out and spoken about it, and she has now been fined again by the WNBA. Why? Because she dared to make comments criticizing the league's decision when she told the story of the first fine on her own podcast. So, this is what she said, the words that the league deemed worthy of another financial penalty. "If I was a ref, I know I would mess up all the time," she admitted, showing a level of empathy that the league itself seems to lack. "I'm not saying your job is easy, but when it's a simple call right in front of your face, multiple times, what are you doing? What are you doing?" And for that moment of honest, reasonable frustration, the league slapped her with another fine, this time for $1,500. It's bad. It's really, really bad. Let's be very clear about what is happening here. This wasn't about the league trying to protect professionalism or maintain a standard of respect. This was about punishing a player for not playing along with the official story. Sophie wasn't being loud or reckless in her comments. She was being honest. She even went out of her way to say that she knows being a referee is a hard job. But apparently, in today's WNBA, simply acknowledging that the officiating is bad is a crime, especially when you're right. But Sophie Cunningham, being the fighter that she is, basically said, hold my beer. I've got a podcast. I've got this platform, and I'm going to speak my mind. I'm not going to just toe the company line. And so they find her again. She even said, "I was so confused." I even gave them credit and said that their job was hard. Now, here's the real kicker, the part that makes this whole situation even more ridiculous. Sophie's podcast, a show called Show Me Something, is actually getting popular. It's pulling in real numbers, getting thousands of downloads, and that success is making things even worse. Not for her, but for the league. Because on her show, she's being completely transparent. She's pulling back the curtain and showing her listeners what is really going on behind the scenes in the league. And the WNBA, instead of listening or trying to understand, is reacting like an organization that has something to hide. Sophie even shared the embarrassing story of how her own general manager pulled her aside in front of the entire team to tell her about the fine, treating her like a child being disciplined in middle school. The irony of it all is that in that very same podcast episode, the one that got her fined for a second time, she probably earned more than $7,000 from sponsors and ad revenue. That's not even counting the money she makes from YouTube ads on the video clips or the new listeners she gains every time one of these fine-related stories goes viral. So now, the league is trying to punish her with these relatively small fines. But all they are really doing is making her platform bigger. Every time they fine her, it turns into another headline, another viral moment on social media, another jump in her podcast traffic. That's not discipline. That's free promotion, handed to her by the very people who are trying to shut her up. The whole situation sounds pretty typical for the WNBA's officiating these days. And the fans are absolutely loving Sophie for it. She is quickly becoming the voice that many people didn't even know they needed, while the WNBA is busy handing out fines to players for expressing their basic opinions. The referees on the court continue to miss the most brutal and obvious fouls, like the ones that have been thrown at Caitlin Clark all season long. People are starting to ask, and they are right to do so, why are words being punished more harshly than actual physical violence on the court? It's a huge, hilarious, and deeply frustrating situation. If I'm not mistaken, the whole reason Sophie started talking about the refs in the first place was because she was saying that they needed to protect Caitlin Clark. Caitlin has taken more elbows to the chest, more cheap shots after the whistle, and more blatant, aggressive hits than anyone else in the league this year. And how many fines have been handed out to the players who committed those fouls? Exactly 0. Meanwhile, Sophie Cunningham says that the referees should be protecting the face of the league, and she gets a fine for saying that simple truth out loud. She literally stood up for and defended Caitlin, and she got punished for it. She essentially said that the refs need to do a better job of protecting the league's biggest star. And Caitlin Clark herself has said, finally, someone did it. She talked about how Sophie was just saying that the refs need to protect the player, who is bringing in all this new attention and money. This is what has sparked so much of the outrage among the fans. Clark knows exactly what Sophie is dealing with because she is the one who has been left lying on the floor time and time again, with no whistle being blown. So when Sophie spoke up, Caitlin didn't just support her, she felt seen. Because this isn't just about Sophie Cunningham anymore. It's about all the other players in the league who feel the exact same way but can't afford to say anything. They are afraid of the fines, afraid of being benched, afraid of being labeled as a troublemaker. And here's the final twist in this part of the story. Sophie isn't even mad about it. She's laughing all the way to the bank. The fines might sting a little bit, but the exposure she is getting is more than worth it. Every single time the WNBA finds her, her audience gets bigger, her message gets louder. And more people are starting to ask the uncomfortable questions that the league does not want to answer. Sophie Cunningham is getting fined for what she had to say about the referees, and it begs the question, how does calling out inconsistent officiating cost a player $1,500, but leaving Caitlin Clark lying on the court after a dirty cheap shot costs the other player nothing? Why is Sophie the only one who is paying the price for simply telling the truth? Because if we're all being honest with ourselves, the fines are not about rules. They are about control. And Caitlin Clark, she has had more than enough of it. While Sophie was being punished, another player, Dawana Bonner, disappeared like a ghost. Let's talk about Dawana Bonner for a minute, shall we? Because this part of the story is messier than cafeteria chili on Taco Tuesday. While she was talking behind the scenes with her partner, Alyssa Thomas, about how to get out of her contract, her teammates were left completely in the dark. It's okay to be professional about leaving a team. You can send a text message to your teammates. You can. Send a group text and be like, "Hey, love you guys," or you don't even have to say that. Just something like, "Hey, sorry this didn't work out. Good luck for the rest of the season." You know what I mean? There's a way to handle these things with a basic level of respect. So, while the WNBA is busy fining Sophie Cunningham for speaking facts, Dawana Bonner quietly dipped out of the Indiana Fever like she was in a spy movie. There was no goodbye to her teammates, no press release from the team, not even a simple wish you all the best text message. She ghosted the team, straight up. Sophie said it best on her podcast, "DB disappeared like a ghost." When we say Dawana Bonner quit on her team, she literally, completely quit on her team. And get this, none of the other players on the Indiana Fever knew what was going on, like at all. People were literally walking around the locker room before a game, whispering to each other, "Hey, have you heard from DB?" The replies were always the same, "Nope." Then the next day, it was the same thing all over again. "Yo, has anyone heard from her yet?" Still crickets. One by one, her teammates started to realize that she wasn't coming back and that she had never planned to tell them. While she was conspiring behind the scenes on how to get out of Indiana and how to take that money and run, she was still getting paid. You heard that right. While everyone else on the team was busting their tails on the court, practicing and playing, Dawana Bonner was allegedly planning her exit behind closed doors, still cashing those paychecks and not saying a single word to the people she had been battling with all season. She left her teammates completely in the dark. She left them just like the fans, wondering what in the world was going on. And that silence, that lack of communication and respect, it completely wrecked the team's morale. This wasn't just a player deciding to leave a team. It felt like a betrayal. And that brings us right back to the league itself and its glaring double standards. The team is just as in the dark as the fans were. Because while Dawana Bonner can vanish in the middle of a season without so much as leaving a post-it note, Sophie Cunningham gets hit with fine after fine for just saying words. "Oh, you thought we were done." Not even close. Let's get into the WNBA's double standards because this part of the story has the fans absolutely fuming. The root of the problem is that the officiating is just terrible. Let that idea sink in for a moment. A player gets fined for asking the officials to do their job correctly. Meanwhile, a player like Alyssa Thomas can shoulder check Caitlin Clark on national television, a move that would get a player ejected in any other league. And what happens? Nothing. No fine, no warning, not even a fake. We're reviewing the play statement from the league office. Just a collective shrug, like it's no big deal. The message that the league is sending is crystal clear. You can commit hard fouls. Just don't you dare talk about it afterward. That's not sportsmanship. That's damage control. That's public relations 101. A lesson in don't make us look bad. No matter what. If you had referees that were actually doing their jobs, getting the calls correct, And by the way, keeping some kind of law and order in the league, you wouldn't have a player who has to go on her podcast and talk about how much the officiating blows. There's now a petition going around about the WNBA's officiating, all because of how bad it is and because of Sophie Cunningham getting fined. That is great. And the fans, they are completely done with it. They're not just a little annoyed. They are rallying together. A petition is circulating online to fix the WNBA's officiating, and within just a few hours, hundreds of fans had signed it. The comment sections on social media are flooding with support for Sophie. One fan wrote, "Man, Sophie Cunningham and this podcast. It's just getting her in trouble, huh?" But it's not really trouble. She's not just a player anymore. Sophie has become a movement. The fans are calling her the Fever Enforcer. And yes, there is actual merchandise being sold online with that title. There are t-shirts, hoodies, and probably bumper stickers too. And they are selling because the fans are putting their money where their mouth is. They are backing the player who is telling the truth, not the censorship machine that is trying to shut her down. The WNBA wanted to make Sophie quiet. What did they do instead? They made her louder. The tickets for this year's All-Star game, they dropped in price by 50% after all this drama. And while all of this is playing out, Caitlin Clark, the face of the league, is sitting on the sidelines, watching her teammate take hit after hit, both on the court and from the league office, just for speaking out and defending her. She's not just mad about the fines that Sophie is getting. She's mad because this league claims that it supports its players, but then it turns around and punishes them for defending each other. At some point, you have to ask yourself, what are we even doing here? Dwana Bonner, you sly dog. You've got one player ghosting her teammates like it's a dating app. You have another player getting fined for calling out fouls that we all saw with our own two eyes. And you have a fan base that is more united than ever. Not in support of the league, but against it. And somehow, in all of this, Sophie Cunningham is being painted as the villain. Let's get into it. The WNBA ratings bombshell that has everyone sweating under those bright, fluorescent boardroom lights. The fans are so upset that they are starting to boycott this year's All-Star game. And it's because of the refereeing, especially in how Caitlin Clark is being targeted and is not getting the special whistle that stars in other leagues get. So here's the deal. Caitlin Clark isn't just a rookie. She's not just a star. She is the entire ratings engine strapped to the back of the WNBA, like a jetpack. And even while she is sitting on the bench with an injury, her games are still pulling in 1.6 million viewers on average. Some of her games even spike past 2 million viewers. She is injured, on the bench, and still drawing numbers like a Super Bowl commercial. I'm telling you, when Caitlin Clark comes back from this injury, the numbers are going to go through the roof. And we're not talking about some small cable networks here. We are talking about ABC in primetime. The network's viewership for WNBA games is up 28% from last year, not because they suddenly improved the camera quality, not because the league did some amazing rebrand. Nope. There is one name and one reason: Caitlin Clark. But obviously, you can see here, people were clearly selling their tickets before Caitlin Clark even got injured for $300. Now, let's compare that with a little dose of harsh reality. Do you know what the ratings were for the WNBA Finals rematch between the New York Liberty and the Las Vegas Lynx? 788,000 viewers. That's not a typo. That is the cold, hard number. That is less than half of the viewership that Caitlin Clark's average game gets. A championship-level rematch, a game between the league's best teams, pulled in fewer eyeballs than a regular midweek Indiana Fever game. Even a blowout. Think about that for a second. The league's own best versus best matchup couldn't compete with Caitlin Clark sitting on the bench in her street clothes. So, to be brutally honest, and I mean brutally, If Caitlin Clark takes a nap, the league's ratings take a nosedive. This league is a joke, and all of this is on them. But here's the kicker. Even knowing all of this, the WNBA still refuses to protect her on the court. They know that she is the one who drives the bus, who sells the tickets, and who pays the bills for everyone else. And somehow, they are still letting her get thrown around the court like it's a rugby match. Why? Well, that's where Sophie Cunningham comes back into the story, like the sidekick who suddenly steals the entire movie. The league is doing this. Yeah, Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, you have nobody to blame but yourself for your league being so bad. And because your league is so bad at officiating and at holding players responsible when they are doing flying clotheslines on the court. Because let's not get it twisted, Caitlin is furious. She's not just mad about the fines Sophie is getting, and not just about the missed calls on the court. She's mad about everything. It's a complete lack of protection, the media firestorms that she has to deal with every day. The glaring double standards. The fact that every single elbow she catches seems to be met with a shrug from the officials. And what's even worse is that her teammates feel the exact same way. They just won't say it publicly. This league is atrocious. Sophie is hilarious and so crazy honest. They are whispering their support for her in the locker room, patting Sophie on the back like she just dove on a grenade for the team. Because honestly, she did. She said what all of them are thinking, but none of them can afford to say it out loud, especially not Clark. Not when the league is using her face for every single commercial and for every jersey sale, while at the same time pretending that she is just another rookie when the cameras are turned off. And now, it's not just the players and the fans who are raising their eyebrows. The media is watching this whole situation very closely, too. The WNBA is getting blasted from all sides over this. But instead of embracing the criticism and trying to fix the problem, the WNBA is just handing out fines like it's Oprah's favorite things show. You get a fine, and you get a fine. Oh, you said something honest about our league? That's another fine for you. Why don't you quit bad-mouthing the fans? Why don't you quit labeling the fans? At this point, it is starting to look like the WNBA is more interested in maintaining control than it is in having any credibility. You've got players leaving their teams without any explanation. You have stars getting shoved to the ground with no consequences. And the one person who dares to speak out about it gets hit with a bill like she just insulted the Queen. It turns it into a bigger story for the WNBA. The league tried to silence Sophie Cunningham, and in doing so, they accidentally handed her a megaphone. Now, the fans are listening to her. The media is circling, looking for the next part of the story. Even Congress might be the next group to get involved. I swear, I'm at the point where I think that Kathy Engelbert and the WNBA actually like this kind of drama. It does make me wonder. And if they are not careful, the very players who are keeping the lights on in their arenas, Clark, Sophie, and the rest of that Indiana Fever locker room might just decide that it's not worth it anymore. Because when your entire brand rests on the shoulders of a rookie who is being fouled like she's playing in a prison league, and your only response is to find the people who are defending her, maybe it's time to stop asking the players to be quiet and start asking yourselves why they are yelling in the first place. So yeah, the league may think that it's just business as usual, but Sophie Cunningham just exposed all the cracks in the foundation, and Caitlin Clark is clearly not happy about any of it. It's a story that will continue to develop, a story about power, control, and the future of a league at a crossroads.